Welcome, everybody, to another episode of this podcast. And before I announce our guest, I want to mention that we're looking at changing a little bit of the naming of the podcast to make it more relatable for everybody that I bring on this podcast and for everybody that is watching and listening to this podcast. And we started with Titan Business Builders podcast. And I do understand that Titan is not that easy for everybody to understand. So I'm going to add something to this. And I'm going to say is the out and proud business builders or out and proud Titan business builders, just to make sure that we're talking about people from our beautiful community. Anyway, that being said, today we have as our guest Mike Iamele. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Very good pronunciation. And I'm doing well. How are you doing, Stefan?
I've been practicing before we went live, so that's already something. But, Mike, usually I do a short introduction of our guests, but this time I'm going to let you do it because I think you can explain it much better than I can. And I don't want to just read off LinkedIn or anything else. So, Mike, it's all yours. Who
I
are
love
you?
it.
What do you do?
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say, because I get asked this a lot, depending on the interview, who are you? And for so long, it was such a triggering question because, I don't know, how do I define that? Am I, my work? Am I my husband's husband? Am I, what am I? And so let me start by saying that I am aligned, zany, free, unmistakable, successful, and vulnerable. And that may make no sense to you, but I promise by the end of this interview, not only will it make sense for you, but we want to help you define yourself and build a business along the same lines. But what I do for work every day is I help people to map their lived experiences, this huge data set of life experiences we all have, and figure out what is that thing you subconsciously do every time you're successful. Why do you want and crave what you want? What are superpowers that you do every time without even knowing it? Every sale you make, every time you're good in a podcast, you're doing something emotionally. I want to know what that is. And I want to map that so that we can build a business for you that's really easy and so that we can figure out, how to stop wasting time and money. Like, oh, that strategy is just not going to be for me. I know my sensitivities. I know how I sense the world. I know that sounds complex. It's going to be super easy by the end of this, but that's me in a nutshell.
That is a big nutshell, I would say, but it's really all encompassing. And if you are watching this right now or you're listening to the podcast and you have any questions for Mike, just put them in comments and we will get back to you as soon as we can. But Mike, all of this sounds really exciting, and I think it's really relatable to a lot of people, especially to me. If I look at my journey across several years now, and just even the last year that I've been building technology, there's so many things that have been pulling me left and right, and worry and doubt and fear and all of these things. And I think it's a good idea to really sometimes reflect and indeed try to figure out, well, what do you really want, right? Who are
Yeah.
you? What do you want? Why are you doing this?
So, one thing I like to kind of unpack this idea of sensitivity because I think it sounds like, what does that mean? And it's actually way more intuitive than we're thinking. The truth is, because of my work, a lot of people will come to me and say, Mike, I figured out my life purpose. I know it. I am meant to be an online business owner. I'm meant to be a writer. I'm meant to be a coach, right? And I always say to them, that's fantastic. And who am I to tell you wrong if that feels good to you? But here's the trouble. If you can achieve it, like being a business owner or a coach, that means you can fail it. And that doesn't make sense. How do you fail a purpose? And furthermore, if you can achieve it, that implies you didn't have it at a certain point. So, did you not have a purpose as a baby? That doesn't make sense. So, what did you have? I always say to them, when we were babies, we didn't have achievements or accomplishments. We didn't even have language, but we all had one thing. We all had sensitivities. Every baby is sensitive to something, right? Some babies are really sensitive to connection. And those are the babies that love looking their moms in the eyes. And those babies are going to feel really, really rejected or left out easily, right? If they're not feeling connected, they're going to be very sensitive to that. These are the babies who are going to be really sensitive as they grow up to, being left out by the kids at school. And they tend to start to hone skills that are really good at connection. These are people, if you're at a party, they're in the corner having a deep talk with somebody over there, right? These are people who love building community, who love, because they know what it's like to not feel connected, and they're so sensitive to connection. They love including others. These are people, if we start to map out some strategies for them, are going to be great at one-on-one conversations, really good at sales like that. But when it's a big stage or a big webinar, they might feel a little bit nervous. These people, there are things we can predict about what's going to work for them and what's not going to work for them based on what they're sensitive to. Because their entire life, since they sense it more, connection and disconnection, they're honing that skill and all their desires around that. And if we want to take this a more romantic or sexual route, we can actually predict every fetish, every desire, every shame based on what they're sensitive to. So that's what we're talking about. It's just starting to understand, how do you sense the world? What are you sensitive to? And through that, we can start to understand why you have shame where you do, why that business offering worked out for you, why that one didn't, why you feel so comfortable with this friend, all of that. And we want to build businesses that just feel like us, so we don't have to try so hard. Because I always say, you never have to try to be yourself. If you're trying, it means you're being somebody else. And I want a business that, especially as queer people, we know this. It's not saying life is easy, but it's kind of like coming out. It's saying that I may be taking some hard steps to live a life that feels more like me and feels natural and doesn't feel like acting or trying. And that's what we're talking about. It's just doing what feels natural to us, because you are right.
Yeah, yeah. And I agree with everything that you said. However, I might think that some people might say that, well, isn't that a little bit too simplistic? Isn't that like a little bit too, okay, sensitivities, that's all? I mean, all this theory and all this science and all, what about that?
What about all that? I mean, ideally, it includes all of that, right? I mean, the thing is, what we're talking about here is, so sometimes people will come to me and they like, MBTI or DISC profile or Enneagram. And I always say those systems are fantastic. I love them too. But my trouble with MBTI is, what the heck does like sensing and feeling and intuitive mean? I have to go read somebody else's definition. The thing is, I'm using language all day long to describe what I'm experiencing in my life. So what I want to know is, how would you describe it? How do you describe your own experience in your own words? And I don't care when I work with clients if, they tell me Sally, Bob, and Jim. I don't care what those words are. If it means something to you, if when you hear vulnerable, it makes you think of free and open and successful and whatever words it means, then that word has significance to you. And so, we're going to do a short version today, but my long version, when people hire me one-on-one, is I spend 2.5 hours with people. And really what it feels like is just them telling me stories, right? My job is to make them feel safe and vulnerable. I ask them questions. I don't care if they answer my questions or not. They tell me what they want to tell me. I'll get what I need from them. And what I'm doing is I'm mapping emotional patterns. I want to know what they feel during happy moments, during sad moments, when they're turned on, when they're disappointed, when they fail. I want to know all of these things. What I then do, I'll give my whole hand away, is I give them 3 visualizations using all the information they gave me. And the reason for the visualizations is most of us use language that isn't connected to what we actually feel. So we're just kind of conditioned. We just say like, this turns me on, or, I want to feel rich and successful in business. Sure. Is that what your body's feeling is what I want to know. So what I do is I give them visualization and I ask them certain questions that will tell me how they feel or how they would feel. And I just simply ask the words they already told me and see if it matches what their body feels. So then we come up with a list of about, let's say, 100 words. And most clients will cry and say, this is it. These 100 words describe everything I am, everything I've ever been, every moment of my life. I say, awesome. 100 words is exhausting. We are not doing that.
Yeah.
So we play a bunch of games where we systematically pack them down into umbrella terms. What I mean by that is, if you felt liberated, would you automatically feel free and open? If that's true. And so what we're doing is packing them down to understanding which words capture everything, so we don't lose 1 ounce of energy. And then we end up with about 5 or 6 words. And that's what I mean when I say sensitivities. So yeah, it should include all the theories, all the things in your life, everything, but it's about who you actually are, not who you've conditioned to be. And there's a big difference there, because I'll give you an example, a vulnerable example from my life. Okay. I have successful as a sensitivity. Now, lots of people are like, oh, damn, I want that sensitivity. Let me just tell you, the shadow of successful is failure. So rethink that one, right? There's no better or worse sensitivity. I'm very sensitive to success. I'm very sensitive to failure, which is how I'm very good at seeing what people naturally do when they're successful. Okay. I also have conditioning over the conditional ways I can feel successful. Like, I only can feel successful when so much money's in my bank account, when I recruit this many people to my program, those are conditioning society has given me, or my parents or somebody's given me, that layer onto what I'm sensitive to. But it feels so intense or worse for me because I'm sensitive to it. There will be people, and we all know this, right? We know those people who they have a launch that doesn't do as well as they expected. And they're like, okay, no big deal. I learned a lot. And then there are other people who are like, oh my God, my life is over. I can't do this. Why the difference? The difference is because some people are sensitive to certain things. Some people will be so offended if they're left out of a party. Other people wouldn't care less. What we want to know is, what is that for you? So we can build a life and build a business around those superpowers.
So by understanding those sensitivities, it's almost like once those situations happen to you, like once your launch is not going like it should be, and you're always immediately stressed out about that, if you know that is your sensitivity, then it's an easier way to handle with that. It doesn't mean it's you can solve it. It's just a better way to deal with that sensitivity then.
So it could be both. Let's throw all this away because it's too theoretical and go into an example, because I think we all need an example here.
Yeah.
So are you up for doing a little guinea pigging?
Absolutely.
And let me ask you. Okay, so this is my 5-minute version, and I just want everyone to know, we're going to have the link later, but you can go to my website. It's free to do this as well, mikeiamele.com/map. Totally free.
Show this one right here.
I love it right there. There we go. But I'm going to help Stefan with this and just ask a few very simple questions. This couldn't be simpler. And everyone listening, you can map with me. It's going to be so easy. It's so obvious. All right. So Stefan, I just want you to think of all of the jobs or hobbies or careers you've had in your life. So this could be, a job like being a podcaster, or, being a business builder. This could be, being a dog dad or being a partner. This could be volunteering, any of those things. I want you to think of one of those things and tell me 3 things you made people feel in that role. And before you do that, I'm going to give you an example. So let's say you were a teacher, and maybe you made students feel engaged with the material, empowered to learn, and safe. Let's say engaged, empowered, safe. So give me one job or role and 3 things you made people feel.
I was a basketball coach for 20 years, and I made players feel excited, curious, and sometimes stressful.
I love it. Excited, curious, and maybe we'll say challenged. Do you want to say that for the stressful and challenged? Excited, curious, and challenged. I love it. All right, give me another job or role and 3 things you made people feel.
I did for a long period of time also freelancing, and I made people feel understood. I made them feel excited, and I made them feel, what is the third thing? Challenged as well.
I love it. So excited, understood, challenged. Beautiful. All right, give me one more job or role and 3 things you made people feel.
I still have an online basketball community, a big one as well, and people that were working with me, I've made them feel excited about it. I made them feel proud to work for this, and I made them feel also a little bit sad sometimes because they weren't always being able to do it full time, for example.
Okay, so maybe we can flip that to excited, proud, and aspirational, that they're aspiring to do this full time. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right, awesome. Now, I want you to think of a challenging moment in your life. Not one that's re-triggering to think about, but a moment where you think like, shit, Mike, that was kind of hard. And you don't have to tell me what it is, but I just want you to tell me 3 things you felt in that moment.
Well, I can tell you what it was. It was actually when I had to close down my computer store in 2008, where I was really rock bottom, and I was frustrated, I was embarrassed, and I was very stressed.
Frustrated, embarrassed, and stressed. Okay. If you had a magic wand, Stefan, and you could kind of change the whole situation around, and you could have made yourself feel anything else other than frustrated, embarrassed, and stressed, what do you think you would have wanted to feel? Give me 3 things you would have wanted to feel.
I would want to feel that's a tough one. I would strength maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I would want to feel a future view, like how do you say that? Like I want to feel excited about the future. I want to
Mm-hmm.
feel inspired to take action as well. Yeah.
Beautiful. Excited, inspired. And what was the first word you said? Can you remind me? I lost my train of thought.
Courageous. Like
Courageous. Oh, strong, you
yeah,
said, but
yeah,
courageous. Beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful. All right. I have a terrible memory, so I'm trying to balance all that you said. All right. One final question here, really easy one. Let's flip it, thankfully, make it positive. Think of a happy moment, a moment that is really successful, fulfilling. 3 things you felt in that moment.
3 things that I felt. When exactly?
During a really happy, successful, fulfilling moment.
Yeah, when I won like a big game on basketball, I felt on the top of the world. I felt super proud. I felt very excited and really happy.
I love it. Excited, happy, proud, on top of the world. Okay. Super easy. Everyone, you can do this with me live now. We're just mapping patterns we see. It's very simple. How many times does Stefan say the word excited? Probably 6 times. We're going to note that. Okay. Excited. We heard that a lot. We heard challenged at least 2 times. We're going to note challenge. We heard proud 3 times. We're going to say proud. And let's pull out one more just for the heck of it, just for fun. We heard things like heard, understood. I'm going to say understood there. Okay.
Yeah,
So just for the fun, this is a 5-minute version. Very, very simple.
yeah,
We've got proud, challenged, understood, and excited. Okay. Now, I can probably predict a lot of things about your life just by knowing what you're sensitive to. I'm going to guess, Stefan, in this very rough, shoddy way that we just did in 5 minutes, that in some of the most challenging moments of your life, you felt these opposite of these things. You felt the opposite of excited, maybe a sense of, boredom or dread or kind of misery there. Maybe you felt the opposite of proud. You felt really embarrassed or ashamed or disappointed in something. Maybe in these challenging moments, you felt, challenged in a bad way. Like it was so frustrating. Like things were so hard for you. And the last word we had was what? Challenged, proud, excited, um, and what understood. And maybe you didn't feel heard or understood in these tough moments. Is that all true?
yeah, 100%.
Beautiful. And in the, really happy moments of your life, the fulfilling, the moments that just work out, I'm going to guess that you overcame something really big. Like you felt challenged that made you grow and you felt really proud of yourself for that. And you felt understood, like you got to be all of yourself and excited and hopeful for what the future holds. Is that true?
100%. Yeah.
All right. We love this because now we've got some clarity about who you are and what is going to motivate you in life. So, first of all, I love doing this on podcasts because you can go back and listen to my other podcasts. I promise you, I'm telling the truth here. Almost every single time I do this with a podcast host, understood or heard comes up. Do we think a podcast would be good for somebody who likes to hear and understand people? Of course we do. We know that's going to be what drives you to that. But what's interesting about you is you've got this excited, first of all, out and proud, great name when we know that you are sensitive
Yeah.
to proud, because that is amazing. But in a great, working with the queer community, this is incredible here. But you also have excited and challenged, which means you like to challenge people. You like to push people. Like you are a coach, like you said, an athletic coach.
Yeah.
This makes sense. You
Yeah.
like to really push people to be their best self. You're not the kind of coddling person out there. You're the one that's really going to push buttons and get people to the next level.
Yeah.
And that's the exact audience that you want to work with. People who want to feel proud and people who want to get challenged and pushed. In fact, off the top of my head, and we're going to do a lot of things with this, but top of my head, running challenges, running things where people come up with a goal and then maybe in 30 days or 6 days have to meet that goal would be phenomenal for you. You are better at that than anybody I know because you are great at challenging and motivating and keeping the engagement high, keeping excitement high, getting people to be proud of themselves, but also understanding them when they maybe aren't hitting their goals, what's going on, and helping them with clarity. Does that feel accurate?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. One more thing, and then I promise I'll shut up and we can go back to the interviewing here, is I want you to think of a challenge you have in your life or business. It doesn't have to be business. It could be life. It could be relationship. It could be anything. But some challenge that you feel comfortable talking about today. If you're comfortable with anything that you just want to talk about. Is there something coming up for you?
A challenge for me. Yeah,
It could be just
basically
getting to the next level. Yep. So go on.
the challenge of building this technology, basically the challenge of not having consistent revenue and dreading the fear of getting back to a 9 to 5, for example.
Awesome.
That is a big challenge. Yeah.
Very relatable for many of us here. So
Yeah.
this is a great one. Okay. So you've got this challenge. You've got lots of fear. Things aren't growing maybe at the speed that you're hoping that they grow
Yeah.
at, which is true for most of us. All right. Which of these 4 words, I know it's our shoddy version, so we're just doing it quick here, but these 4 words, proud, excited, understood, or challenged, do you think is the part of you that wants to succeed? Like if you had to pick one of those 4 words, which one would you feel proud? Okay, so you want to feel proud. Which of these 4 words, or 3 words, not proud, but the other 3, do you feel like, does it feel overly challenging? Does it feel like you don't understand what you're doing or people don't understand you? Does it feel like you're not excited about the work or you can't get people excited? Which one feels the most challenged or triggered?
Challenging.
Beautiful. Challenging. I thought that might be the case. Okay. So what you have just told me is you have a belief in business. We all have these beliefs, but there's some condition here that you can't be proud and challenged in business at the same time. There's something going on that we want to move that, and we want to figure out what's going to really move the needle for you. So what I want you to do is tell me a time in your life, doesn't have to be business, any time in your life that you felt really challenged and really proud. Just tell me anything. Tell me any story you want.
At the same time.
At the same time, if something was really challenging and you were maybe sticking with it and you finally broke through and you were really proud of yourself.
I mean, basketball coaching comes to mind because that was super challenging because I was still in the closet. But I broke through and I reached a certain level that I could be proud of. And I had a lot of people that were telling me that I was a good coach and so on. So, and getting those kind of successes made me really proud. But it was really challenging.
Such a good coach? What made you such a good coach?
Pushing people. Pushing people to be better versions of themselves. That's what I was great at that, at not sugarcoating too much, but also pushing forward and keeping people excited about where we want to get to. Getting everybody on the same board. So yeah.
So it sounds like what you're telling me is that you're really, what you did when you were this challenged and proud at the same time is you were really good at kind of pushing people to be their best self, giving them these maybe milestones or posts along the way to get excited and to feel proud of themselves but really pushing them. Awesome. Great. So what we want to do in business, and there's a lot of ways that you can do this, but maybe you are creating a program where maybe it's a live free challenge where people have certain milestones they're going to hit, and you're kind of coaching and encouraging them that they can join this and then join your program. Maybe you are going to have, 5, and I know you already have your own system, so I may be redundant here, but a 5-step process where you're like, okay, you made it through level 1. This is a level 1 person, or this is a level 5 person, or this is whatever. And your goal is to get people up to the next level and get them really excited about it, and not being, I love saying things like this to people, not being too nice. Because I think the thing is, we all want to be nice in business and whatever. You are much more effective when you're not that nice. You're much more effective when you are really challenging people and pushing them and helping to hold the vision for them, but giving them that support and helping them to be proud of themselves. And I don't know if that's, sorry, go on, please.
No, that's completely true. Because they call me the tough love coach, and I love to do that. I love to be in that role of giving them tough love or playing the devil's advocate, right? because
right.
that is what makes people tick. That is what makes people break through their thought patterns that they had for years and years. And I
That's
just love to
absolutely
do
right.
that. It gives me so much energy. It's maybe bad to say, but it gives me so much energy to be the tough love coach.
No, it's not bad to say. See, this is exactly what we're talking about. We have conditioning over that, right? We have these ideas. I can't be this, or this is not right, or this is not nice. That's all bullshit. This is what makes you different. And when your branding is that strong, like, listen, I'm tough love. I'm going to get you the results because I was, a competitive basketball coach for all of these years. I know what that's like. I want to push you to the next level and make you proud of yourself. And I'm going to be understanding. I'm going to help you work through everything, but we're going to do the deep work together. And I'm going to you give me your goal. We're going to break it down to little milestones, and we're going to push you at every single one to do things you never thought were possible. There's so much energy around even me just hearing that. I'm like, shit, I think I
Yeah,
need that. And that's because that's what you do when you're successful. That's who you are. You are so brilliant at that. Also, we know you felt the shadows. You know all the opposite ends. You know better than anyone what it's like to feel misunderstood or ashamed and not be
yeah,
able to be proud or too many challenges. So that's why you're so good at what you do.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And it's actually cool to hear that, and in just such a short version of what you're doing, it's already feeling like, yeah, this is exactly who I am. And understanding that, and I think that the key here, and this is what you said as well, is it's okay that you're like that, right? You don't
You
need
know,
to apologize or try to come up with excuses why you are like that, right?
I love working with queer audiences for this very reason because we cannot hear this enough. You are right, exactly who you are. And it's not just a sexuality or gender, it's more than that. It's every aspect of ourselves. You are right. We need the tough love coaches. We need the people who challenge and make us proud. We don't want everybody, and the problem is so many of us in business, especially, feel like, oh, I have to be nice. I have to be likable. I have to be this way. So I have to tone myself down. There are other
Mhm.
people who that is their sensitivities and they're brilliant at that. But that's not you. That's not what any of us want from you. And when we it's like, whoa, I can't get that anywhere else. Stefan's brilliant. And that's true for all of us. Every one of us has superpowers. And these same superpowers, I mean, we could play this exact same exercise and I could do it for you in bed and talk about things that you'd be really good at
Yeah,
sexually. We can use it for your relationships and your friendships. You are right. And it's all based on how you sense the world or what you're sensitive to. Actually, I
yeah,
want to give you an example if I can, because I think this is the first time I understood this. Before I did this work, many years ago, I used to own a public relations firm. And I was at the office one day, and the receptionist was crying. She had tears in her eyes. And I said to her boyfriend, who also worked there, go check on her. She has tears in her eyes. She's upset. And he said, no, I was just talking to her. She's not crying. So, well, no, not tears streaming down her face, but they're in her eyes. She's crying. He said, I'm looking at her right now. She's not crying. And I said, oh, we literally see the world differently. We sense the world differently. I
mm,
sense when somebody's feeling vulnerable. I see it from a mile away. I can't help it. I see in their eyes, I see in their face. It's how every moment I walk into a room, I see how vulnerable each person is. It's how I sense the world. It's what I'm sensitive to. If I can understand that, that means I need to work with complete strangers, sometimes public figures, and get them to be vulnerable to me within 5 minutes of meeting me because I have a job to
mm.
do to help them map their sensitivities. I've got to know their vulnerability. If I can build a career around that, that's really great. And if I can be vulnerable in my marketing, that attracts in people who want to be vulnerable. And it started to make sense to me. So what we want to do when I say sensitivities, I know it sounds vague and abstract and theoretical, but all we're talking about is that you literally sense, you see, touch, taste, hear, smell the world differently than other people. And we want to know what that is for you in your language so we can build a life around you being right because you are right and the way you sense the world is right.
Wow, powerful, powerful stuff right there, Mike. And yeah, I think everybody that wants to get a taste of what we have just done can go to your site, right? Mike
Yeah.
Iamele.com
It's totally free. There's a
forward slash.
worksheet, a 30-minute video that will guide you through the worksheet, doing the same things we just did, giving you lots of tips to implement and helping you to do that. Now, obviously, it takes me 2.5 hours, so it is more in depth to work one-on-one with
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
But what I want, I especially queer people, I want all of us to know that we are right. And there's actually a reason behind every fetish, every desire, every reason something worked out or didn't. There's a reason. It's just based on what you're sensitive to.
Yeah. Now, Mike, if you go back a little bit to your business journey, right? Because this is also part of the podcast, is really talking
Yeah.
about how did you start it all out? I mean, you have done this for many years now, but I cannot really imagine how you rolled into this kind of
Yeah.
business, right? Because
Yeah, it's a
you've
journey.
had your own
I
PR
will
agency, and tell us about that.
I'll give you the very abridged version
Yeah.
because it can be a long story. But yeah, so I've been doing this work now for about 8.5 years. And what happened was about 10.5 years ago, I owned a PR agency. I had owned it for a few years. I was working in healthcare reform with a lot of, tech billionaires, healthcare politicians. Um, and I woke up one day, I was in my mid-20s, and I was vomiting blood. And pretty scary thing, right? It's not necessarily
Yeah.
something you want to happen. It continued on for about 2 months straight, vomiting blood every day. I went to a bunch of different doctors, a bunch of different emergency rooms. Nobody knew what was wrong with me. It got so bad I actually shit my pants at work. I couldn't control my bowels. It was
Wow.
really horrific, most embarrassing thing in my life. And I just kind of went on a blitz to get better. Reflexology, Reiki, acupuncture. Like I was determined. Any therapy anyone mentioned to me, I was doing. And while this was going on, at the time, I had never been with a man, actually, to my conscious knowledge, never been interested. I had dated women previously. One of my roommates, I had two roommates, one was never around. The other one was a guy I knew from college. It's kind of a random roommate. And he was a pharmacy resident. So he knew the world of healthcare and he was around during the day. And by, just sheer luck of him being around, he became my de facto caretaker. So he would take me to appointments. He would pick me up, places I couldn't drive myself. Eventually, he would clean up my puke and even, rub my back or cook dinner for me because I couldn't do those things. And about 2 months into this, I realized I developed feelings for him. I felt something for him. And that was really weird for me because I hadn't been with a man. But at the same time, there was a part of me, it was very confusing because there's this part of me that's kind of like, am I just afraid I'm going to die? And this is like a human within proximity. I don't know, what this is. And he had just broken up with a woman of 6 years. They were together for 6 years. So a pretty serious relationship. And so we, I eventually got the nerve. I said something to him. I didn't know if he would want to punch me in the face, but I thought, you know what? I'm afraid I'm going to die and I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to say something and it is what it is. And I'm really fortunate that Garrett, his name's Garrett, is probably the most thoughtful person I've ever met. And he said, okay, that's a lot, but let me, sit with this. I don't know how I feel. And we, it's kind of, I won't go too deep into detail because this is the point of the story, but we did a lot of emailing, which I know sounds funny because we live together, but emailing lets you kind of collect your thoughts and not have somebody, their response right in front of you. And so we spent a few months kind of navigating if this is something we want to pursue. And we started dating while still dating women. And we spent about 1.5 years exploring a relationship together. And while that was going on, I left my job. I gave a year's notice. Never recommend anyone do that who's listening, but I was an owner of this company. I felt like, it's the right thing to do. And so I left that job and I became an herbalist. I became a coach. I did a whole bunch of trainings that year. And when I finished, I thought, well, I'll be the herbalist to Boston's tech entrepreneurs because I know these people, they're all getting sick. I got really sick and got myself better. I got a few diagnoses. And I finally, I'm gluten-free, I'm dairy-free, I'm alcohol-free. There's a whole bunch of things, but I am better today. So I started doing that and I really hated it. I actually hated being an herbalist. And I thought, shit, Mike, like you gave up this great job, all this money. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I feel like such a failure. And I thought, well, you know what? I was successful at a very young age and it wasn't what it was cracked up to be. Maybe I can write about this. Maybe I can tell people, define success for yourself, figure it out. I didn't know that what I was saying is you're sensitive to certain things, but that's what I was saying. And so I wrote a blog. And about 3 months after I started this business and started this blog, a book editor reached out to me and said, can I give you a book deal? I was like, wait, is that how this happens? Yeah, of course. You're going to pay me? Sure. You can give me a book deal. I will happily write whatever you want. And so I wrote this book and that, I wasn't making any money. That was the only income I made, but I still had some payments, from my old company. So I was still okay. And I had some savings. And then in the book, the editor was queer herself. And she encouraged me to talk about my relationship. That's an important part of my story. And I put it in the book, turned it into that manuscript, and then I thought, oh shit, I have to tell people in my life. Like I've told my parents and close friends, but I have to tell people before they find out on the shelves of Barnes and Noble. Like I can't just let them find out this way. And so I know I love telling the story to queer people because we all get this. Telling people one by one about this, knowing how shocked they would be, felt exhausting. And I felt like I did not want to deal with all of their emotional garbage, about this. So I thought, you know what? I'm a writer. I have a blog. What if I just put this on my blog? People in my life will read this. I mean, it's not a huge audience, but it's enough that people will read it. They'll talk about it behind my back. And then when they come to me, they'll be processed. I don't have to deal with all that crap. So I thought this is the best case scenario. So I wrote this blog. Long story short, it got picked up by a national publication. And when I woke up in the morning, 100,000 people had shared it. And so, so NPR is calling and Huffington Post and wanting to talk to me about the story. And it was beyond overwhelming. I was being asked to speak at pride parades, which I did not feel qualified for. I was also being attacked from every which way by some queer people, by lots of religious people. It was, basically people were asking me to defend a sexuality that I wasn't clear about. And this was now, this was over 8 years ago. So, things have changed, maybe in our conversation, but back and not well enough, but there was still conversations on bisexuality, pansexuality, sexual fluidity were even less back then, if you can believe it. And so it was really overwhelming. And I kind of got off social media. I didn't want to be a part of this anymore. I didn't, we had a stalking situation. Someone stalked Garrett. We are married today, by the way. But it was very overwhelming for me. And so here I am, there's all these people talking about me or information about me out there. I've got this book deal. I have no money. I'm not making any money. We're now at the end of this year. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And I feel like such a failure. And I said, okay, I'm going to be obsessed with this idea of life purpose. There's got to be a purpose. How do these things connect, right? Like, and many of us have had this feeling. How does all these weird things connect? Same-sex relationship, vomiting blood, herbalism, public relations and branding, like healthcare reform. Like, there's got to be some connection here. And I got really obsessed with life purpose. So I read, if you name a life purpose book, I promise you I've read it. And I promise you I've watched the webinars too. And you do enough of this stuff, they say the same exact thing, right? It's kind of figure out your passions and skills, figure out what the world needs, find that middle point. So, okay, let me kind of map this out. I've got all these papers in my room. And I think, oh my God, so obvious. I'm so dumb. I finally get it. I'm meant to create a blogging course. And this blogging course is going to help people get book deals, but it's also going to be about finding your voice and knowing who you are and revealing yourself to the world. It's going to be very spiritual. And so I had, very little money to my name at this point, but I thought, well, shit, I got to put everything into this thing. So I get the microphone, the lighting kit, a business partner, a web designer, Facebook ads, like you name it. I just threw it all into this thing, thousands and thousands of dollars. I knew this was finally my meal ticket. And I put it out to the world, and I think 5 people bought it. It was a colossal failure. I lost thousands of dollars. I was now in debt. And I just thought, I'm done. The world doesn't want what I have to offer. I am done. I'm going back to public relations with my tail between my legs. And so what happened was, this is not an enlightened moment. This was just, me trying to salvage some self-respect. I decided to host a failure celebration. And what that was about for me was like, I'm a failure. I'm absolutely a failure. But failure implies risk. I did something to fail. And so I'm going to, I'm basically going to go into a Facebook group, have a party to celebrate failure, and I'll offer up the one skill I'm still confident in, which is PR and branding. I'll give all these entrepreneurs branding sessions, be done, go back to public relations. And so what happened was, I'm used to working with healthcare politicians, these tech billionaires. These were life coaches and artists and psychics and yoga teachers and healers, people like that. And I do these sessions. I think I did about 9 hours straight. I had to stop sessions to pee. And people, all of them, I think I worked with 6 people that day, said to me some variation of, Mike, this is my life purpose. This is my business. You just explained to me my life purpose. I'm like, what the fuck? what are you talking about? Oh, okay, whatever. So, I'm glad you're happy. And one of those women I worked with that day, she told a friend, and the friend emailed me and said, "Can I hire you for this thing to map my life purpose?" And I said, "Well, you can if you're going to pay me. I will find a way to make this work, sure." So she said, "What do you call it?" And I said, "Well, it's branding, but you're telling me it's life purpose. I'll call it sacred branding." So I use that term. And I made a rule for myself that if I had a week where I was getting paid, I wouldn't go back to public relations. That was just going to be my thing. And here I am today. So obviously my understanding of that work changed quite a bit. It came from branding that I used to do with companies in public relations to help them to understand their core message, really. But what it's evolved into is such a deeper, richer understanding of how we experience life, how we run businesses, and how we are as sexual relational beings.
Wow. Wow. That's quite a story. And then I can't believe that if you put that kind of story out there, that people will get inspired by all of this. And basically it means, Mike, that you have found a specific business process almost by accident, if I can say that.
Yeah, that's exactly true. Obviously it's evolved a lot and I've come to understand a lot, and I've worked with trauma therapists and all types of people to really inform the work. But by accident. And I'm grateful for those years of being offline too, and just doing this work underground, because I didn't want to be on social media. So I was kind of doing it behind the scenes, just word of mouth. And then now doing more podcasts, doing more interviews, it's so much easier for me to talk about and explain to people because I've spent so much time working on it.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I wish we had a lot more time to talk all about this, but I think we have to just ask you back another time, Mike, because we're almost at the end of this episode. And like always, I always want to ask one more question. And that is, Mike, what does success mean to you?
It's a great question. Well, I have a cheat because I have my work. So, any of our sensitivities are defined by the others. They're what we call self-defining. So for me, success really is about feeling aligned with myself, aligned with what I feel called, doing the world free and liberated to be myself, totally zany and weird and playful and completely out of the box, unmistakably me, and vulnerable, really vulnerable at my journey to connect with others and let others in. And if I can do that every day and survive, make enough money, that to me is success.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mike, for being here, for taking the time to help me map out a little bit of my sensitivities. And now I definitely know that I'm going to lean in more as being a tough love coach.
Yes, I love it. Do it.
Towards their goals and creating challenges and so on. It's definitely something that I love to do for sure. Mike, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. And good luck with your ventures for sure. And we will talk soon in one of the next episodes. Thank you, everybody, for listening, for watching. If you have any more questions for Mike or for me or for anything that's happening, each other soon for another episode. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mike. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.